Hi, everybody. Good morning. Happy Thursday to you guys, wherever you are. Hopefully, we'll get a few people on watching live, maybe. So, today, as I mentioned when I posted about our live today, I wanted to talk a little bit about positive parenting. I have a new post up on the blog this week about that. And since you're in this group, you probably know quite a bit about positive parenting because my blog and everything about this group really focuses on positive parenting, but I wanted to just kind of address it directly because I know sometimes the term gets thrown around and it's not always clear what positive parenting means. And so just wanted to kind of do a big kind of a Q&A about positive parenting and help everybody understand what it's all about. So as I mentioned on the blog post, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about what positive parenting is. Sometimes you hear that term and people think it's kind of this touchy-feely approach to parenting where you don't set boundaries or you're just really like overly affectionate with your kids. And really, it's not anything about that. It's about finding the middle ground between being overly, I guess, domineering with your kids and being too permissive. So to me, the middle ground is what positive parenting is. And in the research literature, it's often called authoritative parenting. Um, and it's sort of this middle ground. So positive parenting is something that I think when you get into it and learn more about it, you really start to understand how it can benefit you and your kids and your family, because I think what it does is help us understand and keep in mind what the big picture is. And that is what it's been helpful for me is, we get into the daily trenches of parenting and we just want our kids to behave or comply or whatever. And we kind of forget like, oh, the bigger picture here is what kind of adult do I want them to be by the end of this journey, right? And not that we have complete control over how our kids are going to turn out. There's a lot of factors, but um, keeping in mind what kind of grown up do I want them to be? What kind of values do I want them to hold? What kind of skills do I want them to have? And I think positive parenting helps us keep that big picture in mind. So I'm going to go over a couple things I talk about in the post, and then I want to move on to talking about a resource that I think you guys would find helpful. Okay, so in the article, I talk about a couple of the big goals of positive parenting. And I think this helps us get a better sense of what positive parenting really means in our daily life. So one of them that I talk about is positive parenting really focuses on getting at the root causes of behavior, especially in our kids, but sometimes in ourselves as well. So root causes, I don't know if you've ever seen this image of the iceberg, and there's this really great graphic I put in the post. And so the iceberg, right, here's the ice on top, here's the water, and then underneath there's all this other part of the iceberg, right, that we don't see from the surface. So this iceberg theory of behavior is trying to illustrate that sometimes our kids act in a certain way, whether it be disrespectful or out of control, unregulated. And so we see that behavior and we often respond to that behavior. But underneath the surface, the bottom part of the iceberg, is all these root causes that could be potentially, the cause of that behavior that we're seeing. So to us, it may look like disrespect or unregulated crazy behavior, or it might look like picky eating or whatever, trouble sleeping. But underneath that, there could be something that is the root cause of our child's behavior. It could be anxiety. It could be just not having the maturity or the skills to self-regulate well. It could be all sorts of things. And so I think what is really helpful with positive parenting is it helps us look below the surface and say, okay, my kid is acting this way. What could be underlying this? What could be the bigger issue here that I need to address that will really help solve this behavioral issue, and not just, reinforce the rules or force compliance or, put them in timeout. And it's all these sometimes are kind of like Band-Aid solutions. And so what positive parenting helps us do is get underneath that and help us understand, okay, my kid really needs help with self-regulation. How can I teach that skill in a way that this can be a long-term solution to their problem? Or maybe they're dealing with some sort of anxiety related to school or some other issue. How can I help them deal with that so that this behavior gets addressed in a more comprehensive way? So that is one great thing about positive parenting that I think it really helps us focus on. The other thing I talk about in the article is relationship and connection. That is one of the big hallmarks of positive parenting, I think, is focusing on the relationship you have with your kid and the connection that you're trying to build, and how that, not only builds a strong foundation for your relationship. Hi, Kelly. But it also goes back into the behavioral part of it. So if our kids feel like they're loved and feel like they have a strong connection with us, hey, Shelly, then they want to do what we ask. I mean, not always, right? It's not 100%, but building that connection is so important. And I've seen this is one thing that has been really eye-opening to me as when, becoming a parent, because in my training in grad school, we learned about positive discipline, right? People teach us about sort of the nuts and bolts of that. Like, you need to use positive language and not negative language when you're asking your child to do something. Tell them what to do instead of instead of saying, don't do that, you tell them what to do instead. Okay, those things are helpful. But really what it comes from is it has to come from a place of connection, that you bond with your kid, you go and ask them what they're doing, you talk to them first before you intervene with the correction part. And so that is really one of the main things that positive parenting focuses on, is not just disciplining for the sake of compliance and that we just want to be dictators in our family and our kids just need to do whatever we say. It's about building that relationship so they want to do what we ask them and they understand why we're asking what we're asking and the motivation behind what the rules are. And so that all comes back to, again, this root cause issue, helping them understand why the rules are in place. Why do we not hit our friends? Why do we need to clean up our toys, right? And so the root causes, but also that building that connection with them so that they want to do what we ask. And so positive parenting gives us those skills, I think, to help us understand what the larger picture is and how to find the balance in our family with our children and helping them understand what you're trying to teach them along the way. And so one of the reasons I wanted to discuss positive parenting is that I just love the topic, first of all, but also there's this positive parenting bundle that I've been talking about on the blog this week and on my Facebook page. And I wanted to go through a couple of the things that are in that bundle because I think they can be great resources for all of us. And I've been kind of previewing it this week. And I don't want to just talk about products. That's not something I like to do a lot, but this is something that I really think can help people, especially if it has stuff for all ages, but if you're kind of new to positive parenting, you're trying to understand what it's all about and implement some of the kind of strategies that positive parenting promotes, this bundle of resources could really help you. Shelley said, they don't care how much we know until they know how much we care. Exactly. That's perfect. I love that quote. Yeah, kids don't really always want to listen until they know that we really care about them. That is a great point. Okay, so this bundle that I wanted to briefly talk about is, it's through this week, it ends on Friday, and it's a bundle of mostly digital resources, ebooks, printables, and a couple of online courses. And so I just wanted to point out a couple of the items that I think if you're getting started with positive parenting could be really helpful. The first one is this emotion coaching course. And if you've ever read any of the work of John Gottman, he is like a pillar in the field of parenting and even marriage research. He talks a lot about emotion coaching our kids. And this is such an important skill that we can teach them. And again, it goes back to this hallmark of positive parenting being we are modeling the behavior we want to see, and we're also teaching them skills that they will need for the rest of their life. Instead of just blind compliance, we're helping them learn how to control their emotions and how to foster that self-regulation so that they can take that throughout their whole life. And so this emotion coaching course is written by a blogger that I know, and she's a parenting coach as well. And it should be really great. I have promoted it several times, and I have looked through all the resources of it. And I think it is based on the work of John Gottman, which is awesome. And so teaching our kids how to self-regulate, what emotions mean for our lives, and how we can control them in a way that brings more peace and understanding of what those emotions really are. And so I think that is one really a great resource in this bundle. The other one that I wanted to bring up was this family gratitude challenge. You guys know, if you read the blog very often, that focusing on gratitude and just the idea of focusing on what we have instead of what we don't have, and that is really helpful for kids. So that's part of the bundle, Family Gratitude Challenge. There is an ebook by Rebecca Eanes. If you guys have not read stuff by Rebecca Eanes, she is like one of the leaders in the positive parenting field, and so I know that ebook is awesome. It's kind of a newbie's guide to positive parenting, so that's an awesome resource in there. And then there are several printables which are having to do with emotions, so like emotion cards that you can help, especially for younger kids, help them understand what the different emotions are and how we can talk about emotions. So that would be really helpful. There is a Calm Down Hero kit, which I'm excited about because I think this is a skill that learning to calm ourselves, and especially helping kids learn calming techniques, can be so helpful for them. My boys are learning this at school because they have a curriculum that's social emotional learning, and they teach them like different forms of breathing. And you'll see these kids that are, the teacher will say like, let's do the bubble breath or the pretzel breath, and they all know how to do it. And that's something, maybe as grown-ups we don't do the pretzel breath or the bubble breath, but just the idea of like, I can have control over my feelings and how I can calm down is such an important skill for little kids to learn at a young age. So this Calm Down Hero kit teaches those types of skills. So that's really crucial. And then my temperament ebook is included in there. And so sometimes people wonder, well, what does temperament have to do with positive parenting? But again, it's going back to what is the underlying cause of the behavior that we're seeing. And so sometimes if we dig deep enough, we can see that our child's innate temperament is driving a lot of their behavior. And so I'm really glad that they were nice enough to include my temperament ebook in there, because I think it helps parents get just a different picture of what's going on with their kid. They see, and I've talked about this a lot on here, you see your kid acting a certain way, and you may think it's them being disrespectful or them being, not following instructions on purpose, or that they have some kind of bad motivations. And maybe sometimes that happens, but a lot of times it has to do with temperament. And so I've talked about before how my older son is so extroverted and needs so much social interaction that he will ask to do things and do more things and have friends over and have all these play dates and do all this stuff. And I get kind of frustrated with it. I have in the past, before I really realized that this is his temperament. This is a real psychological need that he has, physiological need for interaction. And it's not just him trying to be annoying. It's not just him trying to push my buttons. This is a real need. And so I think understanding temperament can help us get to the root cause of behavior, which is, again, one of the big priorities in positive parenting, is trying to understand where that behavior is coming from. What is the root cause? So all of these resources, I just mentioned a few, there's like 20 resources in this bundle, and all of them I think could really help all of us that are trying to focus on positive parenting. And I know many of the authors of these, and they're all wonderful. Many of them are therapists, psychologists, bloggers. They have been around positive parenting and learning this approach to parenting for a long time. So these resources are going to be a great asset if you choose to get it. I'll put the link in here if you're interested in looking at it. So check out the blog post this week. I think it'll help you get a bigger understanding and help you kind of get the bigger picture of positive parenting. And if you're watching this later and you have questions about positive parenting, please put those in there, because I think it's something that, like I mentioned before, it gets some misconceptions in the blogging world and in the parenting world. You hear positive parenting and sometimes people think that it is something that it's not, that it's all about just easy breezy and that we don't enforce boundaries, but really it's not about that. And it's about helping our kids learn the skills they need to be successful in life and not just be a person who does whatever they're told. We don't want kids who are just so compliant and blind obedience that they don't ever question anything, and that's the great thing about positive parenting, is that it helps them gain this inner self-confidence that, they know the difference between right and wrong, and they know they have these skills of self-regulation and how to calm down and how to deal with emotions. And that is what positive parenting fosters, I think, in our kids. So it's a great thing to learn about, and so check out the blog post. I hope you check out the Positive Parenting Bundle and see what it's all about. If you have questions, let me know, and I will sign off for now and hope you have a great day.